There was a moment, just seconds after being sacked and shoved into the turf, when Shedeur Sanders stood up, smiled, and calmly called the next play. It wasn't bravado, it was clarity. The subtle response, noted by coaches and analysts alike, reflected something deeper than toughness: executive function. In a preseason filled with volatility, Sanders' unwavering control of emotion, tone, and tempo elevated him beyond rookie expectations. And that's precisely what caught the attention of the Los Angeles Rams, who, if you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. According to leaked sources, approached Sanders' camp with an unprecedented proposal in the week before their NFC Championship matchup. The offer wasn't predicated on stats or highlights. It was built on psychological readiness, the kind of internal wiring that withstands pressure, adapts to breakdowns, and leads locker rooms without drama. In today's NFL, those traits are gold. By positioning Sanders as a developmental quarterback under Stafford McVay, the Rams are signaling a new emphasis on emotional durability as a cornerstone of franchise building. The million-dollar move, if real, isn't risky. It's strategic, and Sanders is a prototype. The NFL world was rocked by a headline that barely seems real. The Los Angeles Rams allegedly offered Shedeur Sanders millions to leave Cleveland and join them right before the 2026 NFC Championship game. That's not a trade rumor. That's not contract chatter. That's an explosive, high-stakes move for a player who hasn't even taken a regular season snap. According to the report, the Rams didn't just kick the tires. They initiated exploratory conversations with Sanders' representation. And while both camps have stayed quiet, no denials have come forward. What's being painted here is bold, calculated, and honestly, completely on brand for the Rams. They saw what the rest of the league missed. That one preseason game in August 2025, just a couple quarters, really, was all it took to shift the conversation. 2 touchdowns, precise footwork, clutch throws under pressure, not just clean mechanics, but decisions that belong to a 10-year veteran. That's what turned Shedeur Sanders from a fifth-round footnote into a franchise-level conversation. And it wasn't just a stat line. Analysts didn't stop at the numbers. They zoomed in on the tape and saw elite-level traits under the surface. Sanders displayed the kind of calm that can't be taught, standing tall in collapsing pockets, scanning the field, hitting tight windows, and making split-second decisions against NFL-level schemes. What's more impressive? He did it all with limited reps and backup-level personnel. Then there's his history. At Colorado, he got hit more times than most quarterbacks do in a season and still kept coming. Toughness? Proven. He played through it, led through it, and never let it become about him. That resilience, that mental edge, doesn't show up in combined metrics. It shows up when the pressure spikes. And that's exactly what caught the NFL's attention. But the real turning point came after the game. His post-game interaction with All-Pro Myles Garrett wasn't a viral moment. It was a respect exchange. No swagger, no posturing, just maturity, confidence without ego. And Garrett picked up on it. Fast. That was when people started realizing, this guy's not just ready to play. He's ready to lead. So you've got a rookie quarterback showing elite processing speed, emotional intelligence, and leadership in his first NFL reps. Then you've got the Rams, who happen to run one of the most complex, high IQ offensive systems in football, staring down the end of the Matthew Stafford era. Suddenly, their alleged interest in Sanders doesn't sound like a rumor. It sounds like foresight. Stafford's 37. He's still got the arm, but time doesn't care. And Sean McVay's offense isn't something you casually plug a rookie into. It takes processing power, discipline, and command. Sanders proved in just one game that he checks those boxes. And he did it without the full system, without first-team support, and without hesitation. So what did the Rams allegedly do? They moved first. They didn't wait for a full season's worth of film. They didn't wait for the Browns to figure out what they had. They saw a player who could be a foundational piece for the next 10 years, and reportedly made a move, multi-million-dollar guaranteed compensation, all to bring him in as a developmental QB behind Stafford. This wasn't about replacing Stafford tomorrow. It was about setting up the future. quietly, strategically, and without giving up a single draft pick. If they could lock Sanders in, they'd have a high-upside backup with elite traits and years to develop under McVay and Stafford. That's not just smart. That's how dynasties are built. And let's not forget this move, if it happened, isn't some under-the-table scheme. It sits right in the gray zone of NFL labor dynamics. Formal tampering is banned, yes, but informal conversations, loopholes exist. Intermediaries, advisors, agents, relationships. It's the same way half the free agent deals get done before the window even opens. The Rams aren't new to this. They're just early. Cleveland, on the other hand, has a real dilemma now because Shedeur isn't anonymous anymore. He's a known commodity across front offices, inside film rooms, and in media cycles. You can't stash that kind of potential without consequence. The more time passes, the more obvious it becomes that someone will make a move if they don't. And that brings us to the Browns' problem. Developmental QBs don't develop in the shadows anymore. They either play or they get poached one way or another. Sanders didn't ask for the spotlight, but he earned it. And now Cleveland has to decide whether to accelerate his trajectory or risk losing one of the most efficient long-term investments they've made in years. Let's be honest. Fifth-round quarterbacks don't usually become lightning rods. But that's what makes this case so different. Sanders didn't rise because of buzz. He rose because of execution, because of how he processed, led, and responded when given even a sliver of opportunity. And in today's NFL, that is the evaluation metric. Forget just raw arm talent. Teams are now weighing cognitive readiness, reaction speed, emotional resilience, traits that show up in chaos, not just in drills, traits that suggest sustainability over flash. The Rams reportedly saw those things and made a call. That's the kind of thinking that separates reactive franchises from proactive ones. Even his marketability is part of the equation. You can downplay the Floyd Mayweather effect, but it's real. He draws attention. Doesn't matter if it's praise or criticism. People are watching. He gets talked about. And in a league increasingly driven by media revenue, sponsorships, and streaming numbers, a polarizing but respected player brings value that goes beyond football. He's not just an asset on the field. He's an asset on the balance sheet. So what happens next? If this report is even partially true, then other franchises are now on alert. They've seen how little it took for Sanders to shift his perceived ceiling. They've seen the Rams, one of the most well-run operations in the NFL, allegedly willing to invest real money in him despite his draft slot. And they're going to start watching him even closer, which brings the spotlight right back to Cleveland. They hold the keys. They control his contract. But for how long? Not legally, optically. Every rep he doesn't take now looks like hesitation. Every week he stays third on the depth chart raises a question. What are you waiting for? The Rams' reported approach wasn't tampering. It was a warning shot. A developmental quarterback isn't a luxury anymore. He's a strategic weapon. And Shedeur Sanders, based on what we've already seen, might be one of the most underappreciated weapons in the league. So now we're watching two things at once. Whether Cleveland adjusts its strategy to reflect reality, and whether more teams follow LA's lead and start looking at late-round QBs through a different lens. And you're watching the start of something bigger. This isn't about hype. This is about proof, about decision-making, about a rookie who didn't blink in chaos, and a team that tried to steal the future before anyone else caught on. Let us know what you think. Was the Rams' move genius or overconfident? Should the Browns give Sanders more reps? Or would that be a gamble? Drop your take in the comments, like the video if you're following this unraveling story, and hit that subscribe button. We'll be keeping our eyes on every whisper, shift, and shock that comes next. Because if one preseason game can trigger this much interest, just wait until he actually starts one. The ripple effects of this story are just beginning. Because this isn't just some wild rumor that lives and dies in the news cycle. It's a glimpse into what the NFL is becoming. Faster, smarter, more calculated, and way less forgiving when it comes to missed opportunities. That's what makes the Rams' reported interest in Shedeur Sanders so different. It wasn't impulsive. It was intentional. If the offer happened, Even in an informal sense, it was backed by a vision, one that sees beyond draft order and media perception. A vision that's now being validated with every replay of Sanders' preseason tape. Think about the timeline here. August 2025. Sanders plays in a single preseason game and lights up the field. Not flashy, not gimmicky. He delivers actual results. 2 touchdowns, pocket composure, bullet passes under pressure, veteran-level field awareness. That alone earned him attention. But the deeper story is how he did it. He wasn't playing with the starters. He wasn't operating behind a clean pocket. He was in the middle of chaos, backup receivers, rotating offensive linemen, unfamiliar personnel, and still looked unshakable. Analysts didn't have to squint to see the upside. It was obvious. He ran through progressions with precision. He kept his eyes downfield when the pocket broke. He delivered throws with perfect timing. He didn't just survive chaos. He commanded it. And that's when the narrative changed. A 5th-round pick? Sure. But this wasn't some late-round flyer who needed to be hidden for 3 years. This was a quarterback who could function, right now, in a system as complex as Sean McVay's. And when you're the Rams and your aging starters on borrowed time, that changes the equation. Let's be real here. There are only a handful of coaches in the NFL who can take a young quarterback and mold him into something elite. McVay is at the top of that list. He turned Jared Goff into a Super Bowl QB. He made Matthew Stafford look reborn. You give him someone like Shedeur, who's already demonstrated rare poise and processing, and you're not starting from scratch. You're building from a strong foundation. That's the point. This wasn't about Sanders coming in to compete right away. It was about getting him in the building, letting him sit behind Stafford, letting him absorb McVay's offense in the same way Jordan Love waited behind Rodgers, or how Mahomes studied under Alex Smith. It's a formula that works when the talent is real. And with Sanders, all signs point to that talent being not just real, but rarely understood. This is where the Rams' approach stands out. They reportedly tried to lock in a player with high floor, high ceiling traits without burning a 1st-round pick. No risky trade-ups. No franchise-crippling contracts. Just pure, targeted investment. Low cap impact, high upside, long-term succession plan. But that also puts the spotlight back on Cleveland. Because if another team saw it, how long can they pretend they didn't? Sanders is under contract. The Browns don't owe anyone answers, but they do owe themselves a reality check. Their 5th-rounder just became the center of one of the most interesting personnel stories in the league, and every week he sits is another week of wasted value. Because here's the new reality. If you want to retain your rising talent, you have to show you value them. Publicly, on the field, in the reps you give them. The Browns can't hide behind developmental timeline excuses anymore. The developmental stage ended the moment Shedeur walked into that preseason game and proved he could play. This entire situation has exposed something deeper about the NFL's quarterback pipeline. For decades, the assumption has been that elite quarterbacks only come from elite rounds. That if you didn't go in the top 10, you were probably a backup. That narrative has been crumbling for a while. Brady, Dak, Purdy. But this situation accelerates it. Shedeur Sanders has forced the NFL to look at how it evaluates quarterbacks, not just where they're taken. And the Rams, again, if the report is accurate, were the first to act on that recalibration. Because this isn't just about film anymore. It's about behavioral analytics, mental toughness, adaptive intelligence, how quarterbacks react when plays break down, how they adjust when reads don't go according to script. Those are the traits that determine longevity, and Sanders has already shown them. He's also shown something teams care about more than ever in 2026, market power. You think it's a coincidence that the Mayweather comparison came up? It's not. Mayweather didn't become a global sports icon because everyone loved him. He became one because everyone had an opinion. Shedeur operates in a similar lane. Every move he makes, every game he plays, every interview he gives, people pay attention, and attention equals value. In today's NFL, where streaming deals, jersey sales, sponsorships, and social media presence matter, that's not a footnote. That's an asset. He's not polarizing in a problematic way. He's polarizing in a profitable way. And the Rams, situated in one of the biggest media markets in the country, allegedly saw an opportunity to cash in on that combination of on-field talent and off-field presence. They weren't just trying to win games. They were trying to win the future. If they had been able to secure Sanders, it would have sent a message. We don't care where a player is drafted. We care about what he's shown under pressure. That's the new metric. And that shift is already happening. Teams are no longer just looking at combined stats and college numbers. They're watching behavior under duress, eye level in collapsing pockets, emotional stability after taking hits, how a guy leads when nothing is going right. That's what Shedeur Sanders gave them in just one game. So now the question is, what happens next? Cleveland's in a bind. Do they adjust their internal structure and give Sanders a real developmental track? Or do they let him sit behind veterans while his market value continues to climb and other teams start circling? Because make no mistake, this report didn't go unnoticed. If the Rams were in, others will be too. Every smart GM is now reassessing their QB depth chart, wondering if they missed a Shedeur-type player. And the ones who believe in data over draft hype, they'll be ready to pounce the next time a situation like this opens up. This wasn't tampering. It was market correction. And the fact that a player like Sanders triggered it tells you everything you need to know about where this league is headed. What makes this situation so captivating isn't just a drama, although, yes, it's wild. It's the fact that it's peeling back the curtain on how NFL front offices really operate when they think no one's watching. This wasn't about the Rams seeing a shiny new toy. It was about a team that's proven it understands windows and when to act. And they saw something in Shedeur Sanders that most teams overlooked. Consistency in chaos. Let's not lose sight of the timeline. The Rams didn't reach out after a full season. This wasn't a mid-year reevaluation. This was one preseason performance that completely disrupted the perception of a fifth-round pick. One showing, 2 touchdowns, a handful of throws. That's all it took to convince one of the most forward-thinking organizations in football that Shedeur might be the guy worth investing in. And let's be honest, this didn't come out of nowhere. The Rams have always moved differently. They trade first-rounders like they're nothing. They flip rosters on a dime. They gamble, but they gamble smart. They built a reputation for reading the field, both figuratively and literally, before anyone else. So when this report came out, it wasn't met with disbelief. It was met with, yeah, that tracks. Because what they allegedly did, trying to offer Shedeur Sanders a multi-million-dollar developmental role before the NFC title game, wasn't desperation. It was surgical. It was a front office reading market trends in real time, not waiting for Sanders to get starts, not waiting for Cleveland to realize what they had, just making the first move, even if it lived in a legal gray area. And about that gray area, everyone operates in it. The NFL may have rules against tampering, but the modern league is built on relationships, agents, family advisors, and middlemen. These exploratory conversations happen more than anyone admits. What made this one explode? The name involved, the stakes, the timing, and maybe the fact that it exposed a blind spot in Cleveland's developmental model. Because now, everyone's looking at the Browns. And the question hanging in the air isn't whether they can keep Shedeur, it's whether they're equipped to use him correctly. Keeping him buried behind a logjam of average or aging quarterbacks, that's not development. That's wasted potential. And the Rams' alleged offer, whether fully formalized or just floated, was a giant spotlight on that fact. It screamed, if you're not going to develop him, we will. It's not even about urgency for Cleveland anymore. It's about optics. When another franchise values your guy more than you publicly do, that's a problem. Not because it created a PR issue, but because it reveals a disconnect between internal evaluation and real-time potential. And that disconnect, it's becoming more and more visible. We're in a league where backup quarterbacks are being asked to start at a moment's notice, where injuries, scheme changes, and offensive evolution mean your number 2 needs to be more than just a clipboard holder. If you're not preparing your developmental talent now, you're setting yourself up to fail later. And Sanders isn't a long-term project anymore. That ship sailed the second he made those throws last August. The second Myles Garrett gave him respect post-game. The second league insider saw the poise on tape and thought, wait a minute, because what we saw wasn't raw upside. It was a composed, highly functional quarterback operating in less than ideal conditions and still delivering. That's the kind of player you don't wait around on. That's the kind of player you plan around. So why hasn't Cleveland done that yet? That's the question burning through every front office watching this unfold. And the longer it goes unanswered, the more awkward it becomes. Because now, if they promote him, it'll look like a response to pressure. But if they don't, it looks like negligence. A lose-lose created by one preseason performance and one leaked conversation. That's the power shift happening here. And let's be real, Sanders has all the leverage now. He didn't ask for it. But when you become the subject of multi-million-dollar whispers and strategic succession plans from a team like the Rams, people pay attention. His agent's phone is ringing. His name is circulating. And suddenly he's not just a backup. He's a commodity. You think other teams aren't watching this? Every quarterback-needy franchise is reviewing that preseason film. Every GM who missed on in the draft is wondering if there's still a shot to get him without overpaying. That's how fast the NFL moves now. One game, one shift, one conversation behind closed doors, and the landscape tilts. And Sanders? He stayed quiet, professional, composed, no cryptic tweets, no media leaks from his camp. That kind of restraint only reinforces what scouts and execs are now calling his most valuable trait, emotional maturity. That's what makes him stand out. He's not trying to prove anyone wrong. He's not playing for clout. He's doing what rookies are supposed to do. Show up, shut up, and shine. Except the shine part came faster than anyone expected. And now the whole league is scrambling to keep up. That's the heart of the story. A fifth-rounder proved, in real time, that the traditional quarterback evaluation system has cracks. And the Rams, a team that's made a living exploiting inefficiencies, allegedly tried to cash in before anyone else could. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't public. It was measured, forward-thinking. A move not just for this season, but for the next decade. Because in a league where quarterback contracts are ballooning, windows are shrinking and competition is suffocating, finding readiness in unexpected places is the ultimate advantage. And Shedeur Sanders? He showed he's ready. So where does that leave us? With a Browns front office under pressure, a Rams organization that might have just reshaped how teams approach succession planning, and a rookie quarterback who, through poise and execution, became the centerpiece of a quiet revolution. Let us know what you think. Did the Rams see something that Cleveland ignored? Should Sanders already be taking first-team reps? Or does patience still have a place in today's NFL? Hit the comments. Throw us a like if you're riding the wave of this behind-the-scenes chess match. And subscribe for more raw, real takes on the moves that shake the league, even before they're official. Because sometimes the biggest plays don't happen on the field. They happen in silence, right before kickoff.